Okay. Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rohit Ponapalli. I'm a CISO for NY Global. And like Deepali mentioned in the introduction, I've spent my whole career in information security. I worked as a corporate information security manager in TCS for 5 years. Then I was in consulting for 5 years, where I was consulting governments to build SOC. I was supporting, I was a security architect for smart cities, 4 or 5 smart cities. I was also implementing a lot of security frameworks and programs in Fortune 500 companies. And then I was also engineering manager for a US company. And then I was the internal CISO for a cloud service provider company. And finally, this is where I am. Um, what we're gonna speak today is, okay, see, since we have mixed people in the call, we're gonna speak multiple things, but the agenda is simple. How do you convert or how do you translate a technical statement to a business statement so that everybody in the organization can understand, especially leadership, right? And for any security initiative, we need support from leadership, we need support from board. So you all need to understand how do we convey a risk or how do we convey a vulnerability uh, and get support from business or get funding, get budgets so that the risk is closed and the business is in safe hands, right? Okay, so Albish, I would, the agenda is very simple. I would be, Deepali, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. We can see.
Yeah. And my sincere apologies if somebody is joining this second time. Last meeting, I don't know how it got disconnected. I was speaking till 4:20 and I didn't know that I was disconnected and apologies on that. But I think let's continue. See, the flow is very simple. I'm gonna share the context of how the industry changed, how the IT landscape changed, and how the security transformed, right? I mean, there are multiple reasons why security got transformed and what value we bring in to the company. And finally, what is your playbook to talk to boards? See, if somebody, see, it doesn't have to be always about talking to board members. If somebody is at a junior level and you want to convey a technical to a non-technical statement, I think this is your guidance. Somebody who's already a mid-manager and you want to convey to your leadership, this is your playbook. And yeah, somebody who's already CISO, I'm sure he's going through a lot of this pain to explain to the board members. So it should be at least a guidance for you all to understand and translate the conversation. Okay, so what are you gonna take out from this session? One, translate the risk. When I say translate the risk from a technical statement to a business statement, and then understand and explain the economics. See, every vulnerability will have an impact, right? We all know as security professionals, we all know every vulnerability will have an impact. Now, when we talk about impact, we mainly say application will be down, or we might say there would be a penalty, or we might say it would be a non-compliance and all. But you need to understand, you need to bring the number game also into the picture. That's what you're going to understand. And finally, what are you learning from the incidents? Okay. And finally, how do you convey the same thing to the board? Right. And just to give you a clarity, when we talk about board, right, or boardroom discussions, maybe security or every department will not have more than 10 minutes of time for you to project the security posture of the organization. So that 10 minutes, you'll have to explain how good you are or how bad you are. At the same time, you also need to convince people to get the support that you need, or at least prioritize certain things. And then finally, they should have confidence on you, right? So that is what we're gonna speak. Um, so the first thing, okay, how the cyber defense changed from 2001 to 2026. See, I want to bring this perspective so that you understand the journey so far, and when you go back and explain, or when you want to talk to somebody, technical or non-technical people, you should understand how the technology evolved, right? When we talk about cyber defense in 2001, it is purely about perimeter. When I say perimeter, it is purely a firewall. or an antivirus or a basic network security controls. When I say network security controls, VLAN segmentation or some ports opening in the firewall, mostly the security is revolving around firewall and antivirus, right? 2006 came into picture, and then we had compliance. We had ISO 27001, we had PCI DSS coming in because there was a boom for internet banking, card banking, and huge transformations in banking sector, right? 2012 came the cloud era, right? No longer the need for internal data centers. People started talking about cloud hosting everywhere. They don't even have to know, worry about where the infra is being hosted, right? And the major players at that time was Azure and AWS and Alibaba. And was a lot of confusion at that point of time. But yes, cloud brought in a lot of transformation. So the defense, cyber defense, not just moved from, not just was never it within your organization, but it expanded to the cloud infrastructure also. 2017, huge transformation from security because the ransomware attack happened. I'm not sure how many of you know WannaCry attack. I want you all to understand and go through the complete impact of WannaCry. And for security professionals, it became very easy for people to explain, how important is cybersecurity. And we always used to quote WannaCry incident. Okay, I'm sure somebody must have seen CrowdStrike incident last year, where you must have seen written boarding pass. But WannaCry incident was 10 times worse than what you have seen in CrowdStrike impact. Okay. Then came remote era. Thanks to COVID, people started working from anywhere. Work from home has become a norm for most of the companies. So simple. In When cloud came into picture, the strategy was more about cloud first strategy for most of the CIOs and CTOs. After remote work from home, COVID all came into picture. Then hybrid work from anywhere concepts came into picture, and so it was all about work from home is the key strategy for onboarding employees. And 2026, I think AI, right? You go to any conference, it is AI. You talk to anybody, it is AI. You talk about news, you see news, it is AI. So yeah, AI is transforming a lot, right? So the cyber defense from perimeter changed drastically over a period of time. Now, when we talk about technology evolution, see, cyber defense, it was very clear, but you also need to understand how the technology evolved. So, data center was a norm in 2001. Then came the virtualization. So, when there was a data center, it was purely physical servers and everything. And then the virtualization came into picture, right? One server carrying 40 servers or 50 servers, host, guest concept came into picture, cloud came into picture, and then SaaS platforms, right? It's no longer infra service or platform as service. People started showing interest, more and more interest for SaaS platforms because you don't need the headache of managing infrastructure or managing the application, troubleshooting. You can delegate all the headache to the SaaS vendor. So SaaS became a major game changer. And if you see right now, any application is SaaS application, right? Most of the companies don't want to have the headache of managing infrastructure, right? APS came into picture because there's a lot of business scope, a lot of integrations from one application to other application, a lot of data exchange, a lot of ads exchange, a lot of information exchange. So API has become a bigger transformation, and then finally AI systems. Nowadays, you talk about any company, every company is either doing a POC of AI models or doing evaluation of AI models within a SaaS vendor, or they have AI for strategy, or they're building LLM models. So something or the other has is happening with respect to AI, right? This is the technology transformation that we are seeing. Finally, threat landscape. Okay, see, viruses was a big talk in 2001, and then botnets came into picture for spams, denial of service, and then APT, advanced persistent threat. Okay, So there is a specific attack for specific company. So they never used to follow the same attack pattern, same malware, same virus for every company. So they started looking at APT, advanced persistent. So they used to create a specific type of attack for specific type of companies, so that even antivirus will not capture that particular attack. Right. Ransomware, I think we all know the impact it can create. Supply chain, right? Supply chain attacks through your agents that are already installed through a third-party vendor. So supply chain attacks became more and more. See, if I want to target a company, I don't need to target the company because we are very much sure the organization has damn good defense controls, right? So what I need to do is maybe target their third-party vendor or target an application which has a vulnerability that company is using. So supply chain attacks has become the backdoor entry for attacking an organization. And then AI-enabled attacks, AI attacks, all this is the transformation that we are seeing from threat landscape. Okay. Now, okay, like I said, the threat actors have changed the game, right? From viruses to AI-based attacks. Okay, it can be in social engineering, it can be phishing, it can be deep fake, it can be ransomware as a service. So multiple transformations and innovations, the way they attack organizations, right? Now, I just want to give you a comparison of what was IT security function before. What is a security function now, so that you understand how value or what value we bring to the organization. When we talk about security tools, it was just firewall, antivirus, password policy. But now in every organization is talking about enterprise risk. Every organization is in, I mean, every organization security function is talking about resilience, governance, customer trust, right? This is no longer about how many tickets you handle, how many drills that you handled, or how many outages you handled, but now it is all about preventing, right? Now it is all about um, investment decisions, about it's all about risk mitigation. It's not just about how many tickets you handle, but how many tickets you prevented, right? And we are no longer talking about how many alerts we crossed. We are talking about how many alerts we we prevented, how many alerts we detected before the impact happened, how many tickets, how many incidents we responded without any impact, right? That has become a major norm for most of the organizations because it's all about preventing. It's no longer about detecting and spending hours and hours of investigation or anything like that. And then finally, security function was always seen as a cost center. Now we are not, of course, every internal function would be a cost center, but now we are also becoming a business influencer or growth enabler in most of the organization, because any decision that is being taken by business, there's a security function involved, security team is involved, proper due diligence is performed, proper assessments are performed, risk sign off is needed or approval is needed from security function. This drastic change, right? So this is what is the current security functions importance, right? So what caused this change? Okay, why security function all of a sudden became a separate department with budgets? Why security voices are heard? Why we have a seat in the boardroom? Multiple reasons. So I can give a simple example. If you talk about ISO 27001, people who don't understand the initial versions of ISO 27001, they used to say every organization should have a CISO, right? So this was 15, 20 years back, where ISO 27 used to mandate organizations to have a CISO. And if they want to be certified ISO 27001, they should have a proper CISO function, proper roles and responsibilities defined. So this was 15, 20 years back. Now, over a period of time, the maturity came into organizations. People understand the importance of the security function, and over a period of time, we no longer have to say every organization have to have a CISO function, but now we are defining what maturity or what future outcomes that CISO function should bring in the organization is what we are talking in every discussions, right? So, so these standards. like ISO, PCIDSS, or NASD, they started shaping how a security function should work. Okay, over a period of time, you talk about PCIDSS version 1, version 2, version 3, or you talk about ISO 27001, 2013, 2022, you talk about NASD, you talk about NASD maturity framework. So they've all started speaking about how you can implement security controls or security policies or security management function. And then how do you not just or how do you not just create a function, but how do you ensure you have a lot of maturity coming from this particular function, right? And then not just compliances, not just regulatories. The technology evaluation also has brought in a lot of importance to security team, right? You talk about cloud, you talk about SaaS, you talk about third-party vendors, you talk about, MSSP models. I'm sure every organization has MSSP model, right? Whether it is cloud service provider MSSP or your infra managed MSSP or your security managed MSSP. Lot of responsibilities are being either delegated or it's a mixed responsibility, or you have multi-cloud approach, or you have hybrid cloud approach, or you have only cloud approach. Multiple SaaS vendors across the organization. Every department has at least one or two SaaS applications being used. So there's a lot of technology acceptance, which resulted more and more importance for security function. Right. So what I want you all to understand or take a step back is, if you have spent more than 10 or more than 5 years in an organization, I want you to go back and sit and understand how your security function evolved over a period of time. Okay. Or what caused this evolution? Was it because of, let's say, some regulation? Was it because of some standard like ISO or PCIDSS or SOC 2 Type 2? Or was it because there was an incident, right? And that's when everybody started accepting security as a critical function. So take a step back, or it doesn't have to be this function, this company. You can think of your previous company also. I I want you to understand what caused this importance to security function, right? At least it gives you a perspective that company is very focused on, let's say, governance. Company is very focused on ensuring they have good reputation in the market, or company is more focused on, let's say, gaining customer trust or investors trust, or company is more focused on, let's say, because of the complications involved in the business, they give automated value to the security function. So it gives you a clarity of thought on how you can speak to the leadership or board members. See, if the board wants to focus only on governance or focus only on regulatory controls implementation, then your language should be slightly tuned to speak in that particular manner, right? So, for example, I'll give you a simple context. In banking sector, it is easy to convince a board just by bringing one RBI regulatory, RBI notice, and RBI, let's say, um, RBI notices, right? Similarly, IRDI has come up with a lot of security controls that every insurance company has to follow. So all these policies or all these mandatory requirements from regulatory body can be shown as a requirement to be fulfilled, and you can easily get approval from board, because that's what board wants to hear, because they don't want any penalty from RBI or IRDI or from maybe from DPDPA or from certain. And just to give you one perspective, after DPDPA came into picture, many organizations started taking information security as a serious department, at least in manufacturing, media, press, or these kind of sectors where security is a small function. Right, that's because the penalty is too high. Penalty is almost like 230 crores, and no company wants to pay that kind of penalty. So they started giving more and more importance to security function, right? So now let's talk about why this security transformation. Right? We spoke about all these things in the previous section, but I still want to give you a perspective of or how this security transformation happened. When we spoke about data centers, or when we spoke about, let's say, virtualization, we still used to have data within our organization, right? We exactly know which is the database server which has the customer information or organization information, and we know the server name, we know the server host name, we know the server IP address, and which location or which data center it is in. So we know where the data is. Then came cloud, right? Then the data started going outside the organization. Or data is directly being stored in the cloud. It can be Azure, AWS, Alibaba, Oracle, ServiceNow, Salesforce, multiple other data centers, right? So data is going out of your physical boundary. And then came SaaS models. SaaS models, every department is using multiple SaaS models. You talk about finance, they'll at least have two SaaS platforms. You talk about HR, they'll at least have three, four vendors. Your payroll is SaaS vendor, your HRMS is SaaS, right? Your insurance is SaaS, right? And all these are multiple applications across the organization. So your data is not just within your own licensed infrastructure, but it is going beyond the licensed infrastructure due to the SaaS models. Now, the new challenge that we have is AI models. See, the other day I was part of a panel discussion, and the topic was about AI memory, right? Does AI has a data retention controls? The answer is no. You have no idea where your data resides in AI models. Is it in LLM models? Is it in your chat prompts? Is it in your RAG workflows? Or is it in your AI models that are that are part of your SaaS platform, or your third party is using some AI models? So is your data in your third party vendors AI models, or maybe third party is using uh, some some doing a POC of AI model, and he is using your data to train that particular POC of AI model. We have no idea where data resides. This is where this is the situation we are in right now. This is the major transformation on why security is given utmost importance in the organizations. Right? I think we spoke about data is everywhere, data flows. Like I said, data. So there's a concept called north, south, and east, west, right? Thanks to AI, it is everywhere. It's like zigzag model. Data is can flows everywhere. Data can move from one application to other application. Data can move from one database to other database, and not just that. You also have analytical models. So data is not just in your database. Then you are creating one more database called analytical database, where all AI models analyze your data and give you a summary of that particular data, which is again a confidential information or critical information, but it's no longer in raw form, but is in analyzed form, right? And that data can be a PII information, sensitive PII, a lot of things. So data is flowing everywhere. Okay, you talk about Copilot, you talk about Claude, you talk about any Chat GPT, and when I say Chat GPT or Claude, sometimes employees are using their personal accounts also, or organization account. So there are multiple things going on here and there. So that is the reason data is flowing left and right, and we have no visibility of who's using what kind of data or which model is using what kind of data. So this has caused this has increased the threat landscape. When I say threat landscape, previously, if you have a data center, you have a threat landscape of only one firewall or two firewalls or three or four applications, right? Three or four applications, and you know what to protect, or you know what kind of attacks you can expect. Now, when we talk about transformation from from data center to SaaS models, right? It's no longer just one application. You have multiple applications because your data resides in multiple applications, right? I still remember one conversation that I was having with one of a CISO. So what he told me is, which is surprisingly the latest trend. What he told me is, these days, most of the incidents are because of some data leakage from some SaaS platform. In a month, 60% of his time is spent on investigating or talk to the vendors where there was a data breach, right? It's no longer his internal application or his internal insider risk incidents or his application incidents or his data infrastructure breach incidents or user compromise incidents. No, those incidents are least priority now. And most of the time he's on vendor calls talking about what kind of impact that happened to a SaaS platform, or was there any impact to his data within his platform, within the platform, or going through the investigation reports, getting it validated by a third party like a big four consultancy, spending money to do their own investigation. So this is the trend we are in right now. Now imagine next 1 year we're gonna see more and more AI models, and we'll have to start investigating AI breaches also, right? And second is there's a lot of misconfigurations across the landscapes. Okay, that's the reason we start using tools like CSPM, or we start using tools like maturity models, or CAS benchmarking, all these things to understand if there are any configuration gaps, so that at least we know and we can start looking at not just CSPM, but if we are using more and more third party vendors now, TPRM. Okay. And one more trend I'm seeing is you all know attack surface management, right? Companies like Security Scorecard or BitSite. Now, previously, we used to take license only to monitor our organization because the license is costly. So we used to limit the monitoring, attack surface management monitoring only for our organization. But as we see more and more third-party vendors, as we see more and more SaaS platforms, now we are taking additional license to monitor vendors also, not just my organization, but all my critical vendors are also being monitored through either my security scorecard or my bit site, just to understand what kind of vulnerabilities they have and how quickly they are remediating, what is the threat exposure, and all these things, right? So there's a huge transformation because of how data is flowing across the organization and beyond the perimeter, right? And how the transformation is happening across the technology. And finally, how innovative the attackers are. When I say innovation, I'm sure we all heard of infra as a service, platform as a service. I'm sure last 2 years you all must have heard of ransomware as a service. And I have a specific threat feed within Twitter just to give me daily summary of how many ransomware attacks are happening across the globe. I think every 1 hour I get alert saying so and so company went through a ransomware attack. This is the player, or this is the type of attack that happened. This was the impact, right? So multiple things that are happening across the globe with respect to innovation. And I would not say just innovation, but there was also, I think we already spoke about this. There's also a lot of, when we talk about metrics, right? Innovation is one thing because people have become more and more smart on how they can start creating a malware, or how can. But the problem is the attack duration, mean time to attack. We call that as mean time to attack. I'm not sure how many of you know this metric. So mean time to attack is the moment I start the attack, how long I need to continue the attack to compromise the organization, right? The mean time to attack in 2026 is just 29 minutes. Okay, you all need to understand this number very carefully. The reason being, if you all go back to your SOC team or look at your third party or vendor MSSP vendors, they always say their SLAs, right? The mean time to detect is 5 minutes for a critical incident. Mean time to respond is 15 minutes, but they never talk about mean time to resolve. Okay. Second, if an attack is taking only 29 minutes, if an hacker or these all the AI tools or malware can take only 29 minutes for the attack, do you still think 15 minutes response or 15 minutes? See, when we talk about response, what is response? You all know what exactly is response. We acknowledge the attack, and then we start the bridge calls, and then we start, let's say, calling people and calling the stakeholders, and the stakeholders would be busy. They don't understand the importance of this incident. They might take their own time. By the time we start the bridge, everything, it would be more than 30 minutes. By the time you initiate a bridge, the attack has already happened. The attacker is already out of your system, right? And the breakout time, the fastest is 27 seconds. And the data exfiltration, when talk about data exfiltration, copying your data to the outside your server is at hardly 4 minutes. But the investigation is taking 14 days because they've become so smart. It is impossible for you to understand the source of attack, source of entry, or the methodology, or the techniques, right? And which what is the first source of attack, what is the first device for the source of attack. All this is taking more than 14 days, right? This is also one of the innovation which is scaring the organizations. Okay. And then I think governance, of course, there's a lot of governance across the organizations. Vendors, customers are demanding you to be ISO 27001 certified. You need to go through a lot of the TPRM models, audits, or you do audit or you undergo an audit, right? Because every business has to do a business with other business. So you have to go through multiple TPRM audits or vendor audits or regulatory audits or maybe penalty audits or digital forensics, regulatory audits. You all know RBI does a lot of audits. Now IRD is also starting those audits. So multiple things over a period of time. And finally, I think we spoke about ransomware attacks, supply chain, social engineering, a lot of innovation thanks to AI models like deepfake, wishing, right? Now the mail looks so genuine that you're tempted to click on a link, right? So all this, and finally, you can buy anything in the dark web. All right, all this is changing the way security team has to function. Okay, for example, the innovation that mm, the innovation that attackers are bringing is lower cost. Like when I say lower cost, they have data for sale, right? Somebody wants to attack, compromise an organization. They have data for sale, passwords for sale, right? All the documents, internal documents for sale. So lower cost. You don't have to worry too much about starting from scratch. You just go buy the data in the dark web, and then faster execution because you already have the sufficient data to penetrate. There's a speed. There is increased speed in the way you attack an organization, right? The more you attack an organization, the more money you can demand. I've seen hackers demanding what, $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, and company have paid that amount. Okay, and even after paying the $200 million, they still didn't get 100% data. They only got 70% data, right? And the repeated attacks. It's not just one attack, right? A repeated attack over and over on our organization. So that has changed the way we need to operate, or that has brought a lot of attention to the board members on what's happening within the organization, right? So, I mean, these are all the some of the examples that you can think of, right? One vendor, only one vendor, creating impact to the whole industry. Okay, just to give an example, Air Indigo, Indigo. When we talk about Indigo, I'm sure 2 months back you all have seen an issue where Indigo flights were grounded, and that caused a huge impact. And I think you all must have seen news where people could not attend the exams, people could not even attend their marriages. So multiple things, right? So one vendor disruption can cause damage to the whole industry. I mean, of course, the India Indigo is not a security incident, but more of a regulatory change from the government of India. But I'm just giving an example, right? MGM Resort, one phishing email caused the whole data leakage across the MGM hotels and resorts, right? CrowdStrike outage, you know what happened? I don't think I have to explain what happened with the CrowdStrike outage, right? You talk about, I mean, the recent, everybody thought manufacturing cannot be touched or there's no impact, there won't be any impact. But one Jaguar Land Rover incident has showcased or has shown what can be the damage for a manufacturing plant if security controls are not implemented properly, right? A company like Jaguar Land Rover has shut down a plant for almost 2 months, and it's not just shutting about plant for 2 months, but the loss is the official reported loss is $2 billion, which is only Jaguar has faced. But imagine the whole supply chain impact. right? You have a vendor who is giving raw material. They were hit financially, right? The material was stuck in the port. The material was stuck on the trucks for almost 2 months, and there was no production. They lost customer trust, right? All these things. You all need to understand what can be an impact for one instant. It's not just about one organization, but a company like Jaguar Land Rover has taken such a big hit. Now, companies like any other manufacturing plant, now they started taking security seriously. They started talking about IoT security. They start talking about SIM for IoT. There was no SIM for IoT. It is just servers or users. Now they started implementing SIM for IoT devices, SIM for SCADA. So all these changes have come, and everywhere, every time there's always one turning point. In manufacturing, it is Jaguar Land Rover. In across the industry, it is WannaCry Instant. So multiple turning points, right? Now, um, okay, you maybe I want you to think from this angle, right? If there is a ransomware attack, okay, if there is a identity compromise within your organization, it can, when I say identity compromise, I'm not talking about some normal employee. What if it is a privilege abuse? Okay, IT admin credentials got compromised, or or server administrator credentials got compromised, and there was a privilege abuse, right? And there was a vendor outage. The outage can be platform not accessible, or it can be, data exposure or data leakage, multiple things, right? And then finally um, proper disruption to the overall operations like Jaguar Land Rover impact, right? When these scenarios happens, okay, I want you to understand what is the first impact, or what is the first impact within the organization. Is it the impact to the customers? Is it the impact to employees? Is it the impact to the revenue of the organization? Is it impact to the regulatory? Do we need to pay a penalty? Or is it impact to board? When I say board, I'm talking about investors, I'm talking about venture capitalists, I'm talking about board members who actually trust. Maybe it's the share value going down. I want you all to take a step back and understand, if a critical incident happens. I'm not talking about small incidents. I'm talking about critical incidents. When I say critical incidents, it can be DDoS, it can be ransomware attack, it can be your Salesforce down, or your ServiceNow is down, or it can be you know, your entire application is down, your AWS is down. We have seen this scenario, right? AWS was down 4 or 5 months back in the north central region, right? Or there was a data breach within your SaaS platform. I want you all to understand what is the impact for each and every scenario. Okay, uh, I'm not asking you to investigate, but I'm asking you to take a step back and understand there is a ransomware attack in the application, right? What is the impact? Is it a revenue loss? Is it customer not able to access the application? Or is it employees not able to access the application? Right? There is a data breach after ransomware attack. Customers will be happy, not happy. Would there be a penalty from regulatory requirement? Think from that perspective, so that you're not worried about technical details, but you're only worried about the outcome. Okay. Okay. Now, one cyber incident or one outage, what will be the impact? When we say impact, yes, I told you, understand the impact from customers' point of view, or board point of view, or regulatory point of view. But I want you also to drill down little further within the organization, right? What will be the impact to operations, right? The operations can be, for example, there is a call center down due to ransomware incident. So what will be the impact to the operations? Can your customers do you have an alternate way where your customers can reach out to you? Or how quickly do you have an alternate DR setup to launch the data call center setup quickly? Or do you have laptops for every employee, so that you can go back and ask people to let's say work from home, or use their hotspots and start logging into calls? So, so this is your preparation plan. Okay. When incident happens, see, when we talk about incidents, right, or when we talk about business resilience, everybody says your business should be up and running as soon as possible. That is what is the motto of business resilience. But nobody tells you how do you have to break down. This is how you have to break down. Okay, what is the operations impact? What is the regulatory impact? Of course, you're back to business as soon as possible, but you're still drilled down by regulatory bodies. You have to still do a digital forensics because maybe your production setup is down, you're operating from DR setup, you still have to do a forensics investigation, right? There would be, let's assume you're a banking industry, RBI would come and start investigating you. You have to give all the evidences. You have to prove in the court of, you have to prove in their, in front of them to showcase that you have all the necessary controls in place. You have to prove your innocence, right? Partner ecosystem. Okay, if there is a cyber security incident, let's say within your organization or with vendors, how do you handle it? How do you ensure your business is still flowing through without a vendor not being part of the cyber attack, right? Or not being part of the business? How do you convince your leadership? How do you talk to your leadership? What are the kind of questions you need to answer to them, or what kind of confidence you need to give them? This is a different ball game altogether. Rest of the things are technical. Rest of the things are at least you can handle, but leadership is a different altogether. Right? They talk about reputation. They talk about customer trust. They talk about the business lost during the outage time, and then finally financials. Are we losing business? Are we paying penalties? Okay, are we spending more for recovery? When I say spending more for recovery, maybe paying ransom. Are we paying ransom so that we get the data and then we are back to normal stage? All these things are financial matters. And finally, the customers, right? At the end of the day, any business that you do, you're representing customers' data or you're supporting customers. And then you have a lot of questions coming in from customers. Let's say you have 600 plus customers. I think you have to write a apology mail for all the 600 customers, or you have to write a detailed description of what happened with the incident, a detailed report for all these 600 plus customers to win their trust, right? But if it is B2B, it is still easy. If it is B2C, impossible. You don't know, you don't have a way to communicate to customers, maybe through AGM or you release a press note, or you present this incident report to the, let's say, SEBI or NSE. All these things you have to do so that you can win back the customer's trust if you are a part of B2C ecosystem, right? And the breach cost can be anything. The breach, when I talk about all these functions, operations, regulatory, anything, if I talk about numbers, the breach cost can be anything. If I talk about India, I mean, global, every breach, the average cost of a breach is $4 million. I mean, $4 million is still a small number, but if you look at the highest number, it would be at least $1,000 million. And I've seen companies getting shut down also, right? So this is the cost of one attack. And I'm talking about a critical attack. I'm not talking about your password abuse or wrong password attempts or impossible travel. I'm not talking about all these incidents. I'm talking about a catastrophe, right? Of course, when incident happens, penalties, we spoke about it. For example, DPDPA, the penalty is what, 230 crores, 250 crores, and it's just one penalty for one incident, right? And then finally, uh, you talk about GDPR, that's a different penalty. You talk about RBI, it's not just penalty, but it's all about proving your innocence, going through multiple headache of audits, internal audits, external audits, and all that, right? And then finally, the impact is to the brand value. When I say brand value, in simple, your stock value, right? The more number of instances you have, the more outages you have, your stock value goes down drastically, right? Or maybe you're not an IPO company, or you're not a public company, then your investors will be dropped. Your investors will back out from the investments, or you may not get future investments. So that can be a major issue, especially coming from business growth, right? Customer loyalty. I think we spoke about it. See, I'm still not getting into the topic. I'm giving you a context of how you have to think from, let's say, non-technical perspective, right? Everybody knows we have an incident. We all know how to do an investigation, but what is the outcome of it? We don't, I mean, we don't think, or maybe we are not at that level where we want to think, right? Or you have a configuration gap, and then maybe as a technical person, you go and explain this is a configuration gap, you have to close it, but nobody talks. If this configuration gap is not closed, what would be the impact? How attackers can compromise your application, or how attackers can compromise your infrastructure? If they compromise, then what is the attack path? I'll also talk about attack path in the upcoming slides, right? Or if there is a vulnerability, if the vulnerability is not closed, right? It's not about your metrics should not talk about how many critical vulnerabilities you have. Your metrics should talk about how many critical vulnerabilities in how many critical applications, and was this vulnerability already exploited in other organizations or any other competitors, and what was their impact? Was the application down for, let's say, 24 hours, 48 hours? All right, at least what you can see in the news, at least you can take that as a reference. And then if a similar thing happens to our organization, let's say application is down for 2 days, what is the financial loss? What is the regulatory headache that we need to go through? Or what is the customer trust? Or what is the PR strategy? What is the nuisance that we have to go through in releasing public, in giving public statements? I think that is how you have to slightly tune your representation of a risk. Okay, if you want to represent in that way, this is what you need to understand. Every vulnerability will, we talk about CVSS score, we talk about CVS score, or we talk about risk acceptance, risk mitigation, risk transfer, right? But do you want to show risk acceptance metrics, or how many risk accepted, how many risk mitigated, or you want to show an impact to the leadership? I am I'm slightly trying to bring you the perspective of how you write a email, right? Uh, how you write an email to your manager, or how you write an email to your non-security friends like IT team, cloud team, DevOps team, or DevSecOps team, or how do you write an email to your, let's say, compliance head, or finance head, or your CTO, right? Just add that perspective. Okay. I think we spoke about this, how your investors will have an impact, how your incidents will have an impact. So slightly, slightly giving you a summary of what we discussed so far, right? If I'm talking about a critical vulnerability on an internet-facing application, I don't want you to mention a CVE, or we don't have to mention a CVS score, right? What you need to mention is what is the potential service outage if this vulnerability is compromised. If this vulnerability is compromised, will there be a possibility for data exposure? Okay. If there is a possibility for data exposure, will there be a regulatory, notification? Do we need to inform the regulatory? Do we need to inform, or do we have headaches from regulatory bodies, right? Will there be a loss to customer trust, right? Second, if there is a privilege account compromised, right? We don't want you to tell me which user privilege account is compromised, or how many users privilege account is compromised. After it is compromised, what happened to the systems, right? What happened to the systems? For example, if a O365, I mean, I'll tell you one simple, great example. I'm not sure how many of you followed US-Iran war. But when the US-Iran war started, there was also a lot of cyber attacks happening on Israel systems, right? And there was one company, I think it starts with company name M, Metric, who handles a lot of medical data for Israel nations, right? There was a privilege user compromised, and then once the privileged user account got compromised, they logged into Intune, and using Intune, they clean swiped almost 20,000 endpoints. Okay. That was the impact of one privileged user getting compromised. I want you all to think from that perspective. If a privileged account user is compromised in AD, What is the impact? What all they can do with the AD user? Can he log into, let's say, production servers? Can he log into, let's say, dev servers? Will he able to log into broad servers? Right, that is what you need to bring in the perspective. Even if AD account is compromised or AD privilege user is compromised, you still, let's assume you still have PAM, right? Maybe PAM is a second level of authentication. So even if AD user is compromised, they can't log into servers. The impact is minimum, but still he can log into, maybe let's say he can modify the AD server or he can modify the AD configurations, right? That's when you need to have a different set of controls. You need to bring in that impact, right? And what kind of operations impact that we're talking about, right? So when I say privileged user, don't think from infra. You also have to think from applications, right? Most of the organizations, right? Every application there is a master account. Okay, we all talk about SSOs. Fantastic. Every application these days has an SSO. But there would also be a service account, master service account. We call that as a master service account, which is not integrated or which will not come under SSO. It would be a simple username, simple password for an application developer to log into the application in case SSO doesn't work, right? Local account. We call that as a local account in servers or laptops. We also call that as a local account in applications. So, and that account will not have MFA. You take any application within your organization, think from a local master account for an application that will never have MFA. Now, what is the impact if that username and password is compromised? Okay, so think from that perspective. I don't want you all to think from, yes, we have an instant admin account got compromised. Yeah, no, I don't want you to think like that. Those days are gone. These days, incident can happen, incident will happen, thanks to all these AI attacks, thanks to all the phishing emails, thanks to, let's say, people writing down passwords, people clicking on URL links, URLs that they are not supposed to click, right? Attacks will happen. So be ready with an attack, but I also want you to think from be ready with an impact and the severity of the impact. You have to do a lot of threat modeling. People forgot the concept of threat modeling these days, but start doing threat modeling. Okay, SaaS applications, right? I mean, I think we have this concept called shadow IT, right? And then then came a concept called shadow SaaS. Now the concept is shadow AI. So you all need to understand which applications are being used within your organization. Sorry, sorry. So delayed patching, we always highlight there is a delayed patching, delayed patching. Then you also need to highlight if there is a delayed patching, how many patches are not getting implemented, and was there a proof of concept for an attack if this patch is not implemented? Was it already being executed by hackers? I think you all have to bring that perspective of what risk we are carrying if we are not doing patching on time. Right. Finally, everybody has playbooks, right? Everybody has BCP drills, BCP. We do a lot of call tree exercises. We do a lot of call tree and what is it? So we have multiple SOPs for recovering the application or initiating a DR site and all that, right? So, but have we executed it? Okay, that also is something that you guys need to understand so that you all can go back and ask teams to execute it and see whether your SOP that is already written is actually is what you're following or not, right? And second, what is the RPO and RTO, right? The problem with RPO and RTO is, yeah, I'm talking about few things. Give me another 10 minutes. We'll get into the actual playbook, right? The thing is, every organization has RPO and RTO, and every organization has, for example, my application. I want this application to be 24 by 7, right? Not even a delay of 5 minutes. But your BCP document says RTO is 4 hours. Is it in line with your business requirement? No, the answer is no. Your RTO says 4 hours, but your board expectation is this application should be 24 by 7 without even 5 minutes delay. And that is what you boast in with your customers. That is what you boasted across your vendors and all that, right? So your business values and your RPO and RTO values should be same. And this is not the case in most of the organizations. right? So with all this into picture, right? I so I want you all to starting today. I want you all to rewrite your statements. Okay. For example, we have a critical vulnerability, insufficient telemetry, or weak privilege access controls, vendor exposure. But the way you need to write is we have an exposure that could interrupt a customer service, that could delay that can cause an outage, that can impact revenues, right? That can trigger regulatory impact, right? All this is something that you need to um, write in your statements. Okay. Finally, right? I mean, of course, the reason why I gave you all this is to start thinking from that perspective, but this is simple and easy, right? For example, you always have to translate your technical statements to non-technical statements in a easy, simple format so that your board will understand. See, imagine your board, you always need to understand your target audience. See, you're talking about board members who are already 60 plus years of age, right? They have less attention span, and they're already focused on, they already came to board discussion or some monthly discussion with a specific agenda. And you are not the only person you are presenting. You have another CTO, you have HR, you have head HR, you have privacy team, you have legal team, you have finance team with their own agendas, right? And then finally, you have to prioritize uh, your requirements or the ask in such a way that people listen to you. You can't go with 10 requirements. At least prioritize two or three where you can spend more time to talk, and remaining is just maybe you can say these are in pipeline. You already have a budget for it, or we are not looking at this in this quarter. We are looking in next quarter. At least you are giving them a notification or heads up that yes, these are also risks that we are planning to do in the next quarter, right? And finally, you have to build a trust. See, the problem with building trust is every time, one thing I understood from security people is we always talk about either a vulnerability or an incident or let's say or a risk, right? But we never showcase how strong we are. How good is your security posture? Okay, I'm not talking about audit reports. Yes, audit reports, we all know how the audit happened. We're all very good with documentations, evidences, and all that. And that is more like point in time compliance. I always say this as point in time compliance because you're audited today, your report is given based on today's audit findings, right? Tomorrow it can be a different situation. Tomorrow you have a different application altogether. Maybe the audit happens after 1 year, right? But when if you have to build a trust, right? There are a couple of things I've done in my previous organization. One is breach attack simulation. Okay, when you do a breach attack simulation, you're actually simulating an attack and you are showing out of, let's say, 100 attacks, 99 attacks are already defended by my security controls, only one attack. So that gives a confidence to board saying, yes, we have done excellent in breach attack simulation, right? Or you talk about red teaming exercise, you deploy, maybe you create a funding so that let's say red teaming assignment is given to, let's say, Big Four or some third party vendor. He does continuous attacks and you're able to identify, right? Or you can do a red teaming, blue teaming exercise. Okay, where blue teaming exercise where you start doing multiple breach attack simulations or attack simulations, and you have alerts coming in. So these are the metrics that gives confidence to board members. You can't always go back with what you need. You also need to prove that the investment that you made is this is the return of investment. Okay, people ask what is return of investment in security? This is your return of investment. The confidence that you give, or the trust, or the audit reports, or internal audit reports, or regulatory audit reports, or your initiatives, or your maturity, right? Or your phishing simulation reports. Okay, let's say you do a phishing simulation and 99% people reported a phishing attack. That gives confidence to people, right? And once you build all this, right, then influence automatically comes into picture. Any decision you take, you'll have support from leadership. Any comment you make, it is heard. Okay, any risk that you put in front of the leadership, they appreciate it. So these are something that you need to build over a period of time or in every discussion, right? I think we already spoke about how you have to convert technical to business, but you also need to start looking at what metrics you need to showcase to leadership, right? Don't always talk about how many risks are accepted. They don't want to understand, or they don't know, they're not interested in how many risks are accepted, right? They don't want to hear what policies have changed or what is your phase in which you are implementing security controls. What they want to see is your MTTD, your MTTR, how confident you are with respect to recovering business, right? Or what is your exposure? All this is something you need to um, you need to showcase to leadership, right? And um, you always have to create a story, right? When we talk about story, okay, you have technical gaps, right? And then you have business service, which can be impacted because of this technical gaps. And then finally, you have an impact, right? So you have to write your statement in such a way there is a story and what decision you need. See, you can't just go with a problem statement, right? You can't just say this is the impact to organization. But what is your plan? You want people to invest money. You want to showcase so that they accept the risk. They're okay. The business or the application can't be 24 by 7. They're okay even if the application is down for 4 hours, right? That is acceptance needed. You don't. That's when your RTO changes, right? Or do you want to stop a certain application? Do you want to stop certain onboarding of a vendor, right? Or do you want to redesign the complete architecture, operations, everything? And then finally, once you make these changes, what is the return of what is the value in bringing these changes? Okay, does the RTO improve? Does the RTO is in acceptance stage? Is the MTTD increasing because you're investing some money in a tool, right? Or is your exposure reduced because, for example, you have a third party or vendor applications, right? Do you want to really expose the vendor applications to across the globe? Can you bring that behind, let's say, a corporate browser? Because you're spending just few amounts of money on the corporate browser, you're reducing a threat landscape, right? Even if somebody wants to hack the application, it is not accessible to internet. So if your third party wants to access the portal, they have to log into, let's say, Zscaler corporate browser or a Google corporate browser, and then that application would be given access to the third party vendor. So you're reducing your threat landscape by investing small amounts of money here and there. Okay, so this is how you need to create a story. How exposed are we? Okay, and what could it cost? What are our choices? And if these choices are made, how it will impact our confidence. When I say our confidence, it can be customer confidence, it can be investor confidence, it can be regulatory confidence, it can be anything, right? Your metrics or your one-liner statement or your things should consist of these four. Okay. I mean, you understood, right? How exposed are we? What could it cost? And what are our choices? And what is the confidence if these choices are made? Will it improve? Will it decrease? Are you ready with a PR statement? Are you ready with a public statement? Can we review it legally? All these things have to come. And finally, when I talk about confidence, right? When I talk about building confidence or showing the confidence to the board members, these are the things that you need to do. uh, Evaluating crown jewels, evaluating threat scenarios. I told you about threat scenario, right? If a AD admin user got compromised, what is the threat path, right? What is the threat attack path? If Oath-History admin got compromised, what is the attack path? What is the impact? You always have to have attack paths defined. That's very much important. See, you might have 100 SOC incidents, but for every SOC incident, I would always recommend you guys to come up with attack paths. Maybe you mitigated an attack, or maybe attack is quickly identified and resolved. But I told you in the starting, right? Learning from incidents. This is what is the learning from incident. When you learn from incident, you need to understand a couple of preventive controls. You all talk about preventive controls, right? The whole point of preventive controls is to ensure the similar attack doesn't happen. But do you have an attack path in case if the incident happens again? Maybe the incident is did not trigger an alert, but still incident happens. Like I said, incidents will happen. So do you have an attack path? Do you have a threat scenario? Do you have a threat modeling, not just for your infrastructure, but for even your critical vendors, right? And then what kind of controls you have. There is a famous diagram I always showcase to my team members or whenever I go. You have a security layers, right? Data is one layer, identity is one, I mean, user is another layer, endpoint is another layer, network is another layer, application, and then perimeter, right? And then finally governance layer. Do you have enough controls across all these security layers? Okay, and finally, how good is your resilience and what metrics you want to showcase to leadership? These things will build confidence, and these are not easy to be built in. It needs, this will be built over a period of time. Okay. Uh, I think this is what I showcased. This is what I spoke. Maybe just for reference, name your crown jewel, map the attack path, close the control gap, test the recovery, and then report the confidence levels. And finally, the transparency. And I've seen many people not showing or not being transparent or not being honest in front of the board. You have a gap, you have a gap. Showcase it, no? You have a problem, you have a problem. You don't have to showcase or hide it from the facts, right? That is something which actually builds confidence on the board. Being honest and being transparent. If you are good, show the evidence that you are good. If you are bad, show the evidence you are bad. Okay, and then be a critical player in giving them options. Keep highlighting it. Maybe you'll not get approval this quarter, you'll get approval for next quarter, right? Um, mm, I think we spoke about this. Okay, this is not definitely related to how you want to speak to board, but I want you all to go back and think a war room scenario. You all know war room scenarios, right? Especially, let's say there is a one ransomware attack. I want you all to go through a war room scenario, understand how you would understand how there would be how what will be the situation in a war room scenario, who are all the stakeholders involved, right? uh, how do you handle the incident quickly? How do you handle incident technical point of view, or how do you handle incidents from from a regulatory point of view? How do you handle incident, let's say from leadership point of view? You have multiple stakeholders within the call, right? You have a PR team, you have a marketing team, you have your senior IT head, legal head, or maybe manufacturing head unit, right? And then you have your leadership board members in the call in the war room. You have to give multiple statements to multiple people. So multiple. So you need to understand, and moral is bad in that particular scenario, right? Because people are asking you multiple things. Imagine a war room scenario, right? And then articulate yourself how you gonna talk to people, how you gonna talk to a PR team, how you gonna talk to marketing team, how you talk to your end customers, how you talk to your vendors, how you talk to your leadership, how you talk to your manufacturing plant, what needs to be communicated, how do you even talk to your SOC team, right? Multiple scenarios, articulate yourself in a CISO, and then start imagine the scenario what you need to speak. See, these days the war room scenarios are very less because we have all damn good cyber defense controls, but I still want you to think from that angle. Okay, and I think I've already spoken about this. So this is the template, right? What is a business service? What is the criticality of the business service? What if it is impacted? What is the cause? When you write a statement, I want you to think these metrics. And then finally, we need to translate. Technical people should speak non-technical language. Speak team members should speak business numbers, not technical numbers, right? Finally, you have to build confidence in front of your board, in front of your manager, in front of your leadership, right? And then finally, be transparent, be honest, and then finally get the leadership support and confidence that you need to build over a period of time. right? This is what I have. Maybe I can share this presentation, but now I'm sorry I took some time, but now I'm open for any questions.
Yes,
I'm
thank you
sorry I
so much,
spoke a
sir.
lot.
No issues, sir. Still, we have 10 minutes, so we can start Q&A session. So if anyone have any question, either you can drop in the question and answer section, or you can just raise your hand. I will unmute and you can ask your questions directly.
Any questions? I see what I said maybe not may not be relevant for most of the people. Uh, some are might be still students, some are might be in the middle management layer and all. But see, this is your roadmap for transforming yourself, right? When you handle multiple scenarios, then usually you get into think. Maybe there's a saying, right? Think, be in my shoes, and then think about it. That's what I'm trying to give you, that perspective. So even if you don't have questions, it's okay, no problem. But change your dialogue delivery, change your email writing style, change your reporting metrics. Okay, yes, definitely for your manager, there are different set of metrics, but imagine you also add more metrics to your weekly dashboards or monthly dashboards, right? So transform yourself and reimagine everything. Be innovative. That's what I can say. Right.
I guess, sir, there is no questions. Either they
Then
understood everything or what.
no, it's
So,
okay. This is more of a management discussion.
yes,
This is not a
yes,
technical thing.
exactly.
So I understand. I understand.
Yes, yes.
Um,
So, thank you so much, sir, on the behalf of everyone present here for an enriching and highly relevant session. And I
yeah.
also thank all the participants for joining us today and for your involvement in the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You can wrap
Have
up
a
the
nice day.
session.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
nice day to you, sir. Thank you.